Let's go now to the origin criterions. A product-specific rule of origin are, for the purpose of this introductory lesson, one of the most essential aspects of preferential trade agreements, and rule of origin, of course. Because with these rules, we determine in practice the origin of goods and the eligibility for preferential treatment. So there are two basic criteria used to determine the origin of goods. So the first criterion is based on whether the goods are wholly obtained or wholly produced in a specific country. And the second criteria is based on substantial transformation, which means the goods have undergone sufficient work or processing to be considered as originating in a particular country. In the second criterion, there are three commonly used methods to determine this substantial transformation. The first method is the change of tariff heading. It is referred to the transformation of goods from one tariff classification to another. For example, if raw material imported from one country are transformed into a finished product with a different tariff heading in another country, the finished product is considered to be originating in that country. The second method is the value added rule. It's required that certain percentage of the value of the finished product must be added in the country of origin for it to be considered as originating in that country. For example, if a product is made of imported raw material and the value of the material is less than a certain percentage of the final product's value, the product will be considered as originating in that country. Now, the third method is the specific manufacturing process, which means that a particular manufacturing process must be carried out in the country of origin for the product to be considered as originating in that country. For example, if a product is made of imported raw material but must undergo a particular manufacturing process in the country of origin, the product is considered to be originating in that country. These methods are typically used in conjunction with each other, and different preferential trade agreements have different product-specific rule of origin, of course. Remember, the product-specific rule of origin are designed to prevent the deflection of trade and transshipment of goods. They, of course, also help to ensure that only goods that meet the specific requirement of the preferential trade agreement are eligible for preferential treatment. So let's see now these criteria one by one. Let's start with the criterion of wholly obtained goods, which include also wholly produced. When a product is produced entirely in one country or from natural resources found in that country, it is relatively easy to establish its country of origin. Wholly obtained goods refer to goods that are produced in a single stage or entirely made from natural resources found in a country. For example, live animals born and raised in a given country, plants harvested in a specific country, or minerals extracted from a single country. This product can be considered wholly obtained if they are entirely made in the same country. The definition of wholly obtained goods also include product made from wholly obtained goods alone or from scrap and waste derived from manufacturing or processing preparation of consumption. Product in chapter 1 to 20 of the harmonized system are generally considered wholly obtained goods. Establishing the origin of wholly obtained goods is typically straightforward, as proof that the product was produced or obtained in the preferential trade partner is usually sufficient. However, the challenge arises when goods are produced using material from multiple countries or undergo a substantial transformation in another country. Well, we have learned that wholly obtained goods are products that are produced or obtained in a single country with no imported component. These goods are relatively easy to establish their country of origin and proof that they were produced or obtained in the preferential trade partner is sufficient. Now let's delve into the specific type of goods that fall under the category of wholly obtained. In general, wholly obtained goods are products that are naturally occurring or live animals born and raised in a given country. Additionally, they include plant harvested in a given country and mineral extracted or taken in a single country. A good produced wholly in a given country shall be taken as originating in that country. This includes minerals extracted from its soil, territorial waters, or from its seabed, as well as vegetable products harvested or gathered in that country. Uh, Live animals born and raised in that country and products obtained from them or obtained from hunting or fishing conducted into that country are also considered wholly obtained. Other types of goods that fall under the definition of wholly obtained include products obtained by maritime fishing and other products taken from the sea by a vessel of that country. Product obtained abroad, a factory ship of that country solely from product of the kind covered by the paragraph F you see there above, and product extracted from marine soil or subsoil outside that country's territorial waters, provide that the country has sole right to work that soil or subsoil. Finally, goods produced in that country solely from the product referred into in paragraph A to I you see on the screen and above are also considered wholly obtained, or as we call it before, wholly produced. The second criterion to identify an originating product is the substantial transformation. In this case, we will talk about a different method for determining the country of origin of a product, particularly in the case where two or more countries have taken part in its production. Let's define the concept of substantial transformation of the definition. First, this concept, substantial transformation, is referred to a process that imparts a new essential character to a product. This process must be a change so significant that it results in a product with different characteristics or properties. This is an essential element in the rule of origin, as it determines the country of origin of a product base or where the substantial transformation really occurs. In general, there is no simple and standard rule for determining the nationality of a product. While rules for products that are wholly obtained are usually straightforward, those relating to sufficient working process can be considered more complicated. The rules of origin define the method for determining in which country a product has undergone sufficient working or processing or substantial transformation. As we mentioned it before, there are three main methods or criteria that can be used separately or in combination to determine the substantial transformation. The first is the change of tariff classification, which means that if the product has undergone a change in the harmonized system tariff code, it may be considered as having undergone substantial transformation. The second is value add, which is the difference between the total value of the materials and component used in the production of the product and the total value of the final product. If the value added in a particular country is substantial enough, it may be considered having undergone substantial transformation in that country. The third method is the specific manufacturing process. This criterion evaluates the complexity, nature, and purpose of the manufacturing process used in the production of the product. If the manufacturing process is significant enough to convey a new essential character to the product, it may be considered as having undergone substantial transformation. In conclusion, substantial transformation plays a crucial role in the rules of origin. It is a means of determining the economic nationality of a product, particularly in the case where two or more countries have taken part on its production. So now let's talk a bit more about the first criteria or method used to determine substantial transformation, the change of tariff heading, CTH. A change of tariff heading is a criterion that determines if a good has undergoes substantial transformation. The principle behind this criterion is simple. If a product change its tariff classification code due to processing or manufacturing, it can be considered as having undergone substantial transformation. To apply the change tariff heading criterion, the rule of origin requires that the good be classified under a different tariff heading than all of the non-originating material used in its production. This criterion can be applied at different level of classification depending on the particular free trade agreement or agreement in question. It can be applied at the chapter level, 2 digits, heading level, 4 digits, subheading level, 6 digits, or even at the national item levels, 8 or 10, or depending of the country. It is important to know that the CTH criterion may not be applicable to all products, especially those that are not listed in the tariff schedule or those with complex production process. In such cases, the other criteria may be applied either individually or in combination with this criteria of CTH. So, in summary, the CTH criterion is important method for determining substantial transformation and ultimately the origin of a product. By applying this criterion, we can identify if the good has been transformed enough to be considered as well as having originating from a particular country. But let's now apply this first criterion, the change of tariff heading to determine the country of origin. We can take fresh tomatoes and tomato juice, for example. For the fresh tomato, we need to identify the heading or subheading in which it falls. And the tariff classification for fresh and chilled tomatoes is 070200. If the tomato is grown in, let's say, South Africa and undergoes sufficient processing, it will be considered as having South African origin. However, if the tomato is imported from South Africa and processed in, let's say, Malawi, and change the classification under heading 070200 to any other tariff code, so the origin will be Malawi instead of South Africa. Now let's consider tomato juice. The tariff classification for tomato juice is 200950. If the tomato is grown, for example, in South Africa and processed into tomato juice as well in South Africa, it will be classified under heading 200950, and of course the origin will be South African. However, if the tomato is grown in South Africa, but the processing of the tomato juice take place, let's say, in Zambia, the origin change. Now the origin of the tomato juice will be Zambia instead of South Africa. So from now, please take note that determining the origin of a product based on the change of tariff heading criterion require an understanding of the applicable tariff classification and the processing that the product can undergo in different countries. Let's see the application of this criteria in another example. In this case, we have a 100% cotton fabric is produced in China and then exported to Lesotho, where it is used to make men's 100% cotton shirts. According to the criterion of change in tariff classification, a good is considered as substantially transformed when it is classified in a heading or subheading different from all non-originating material used. The tariff classification for 100% cotton fabric is 5208, and the tariff classification for men's 100% cotton shirt is 6105. Since the fabric is produced in China and has a tariff classification of 5208, it is considered to originate from China. However, since the fabric is substantially transformed into a men's 100% cotton shirts with a different tariff classification of 6105 in Lesotho, the country of origin from the final product, the men 100% cotton shirt, is Lesotho. To sum up, the change of tariff heading criteria in one of the methods is one of the methods used to determine the country of origin for a product. It's applied when good is considered substantially transformed because it is classified in a heading or subheading different from all non-originating material used. This criterion can be applied at different levels, including the chapter, heading, subheading, and item levels. It is important to know that the specific level of the tariff classification required from substantial transformation may depend on the rules of the free trade agreement being used. Moving on to the second criterion, the value added rule is another way to determine the substantial transformation of a good. In simple terms, it involves calculating the value that has been added to the product in the process of production. It is typically measured as a percentage of the final product's total value. The idea behind the value added rule is that the product's country of origin is the one that has added the most value to it. This means that if a product is made with materials from multiple countries, the country where the value added process was performed is the country of origin. The value added criterion can be expressed in two ways: maximum allowance for non-originating materials and minimal requirement of domestic content. In the case of maximum allowance, a good is considered to have undergo substantial transformation when the value of non-originating material used in this production does not exceed a specific percentage of the final value of the product. On the other hand, minimum domestic content requires a certain percentage of the final product's value to be added in the country of origin. Let me give you an example to help you better understand this criteria. Suppose that Mexico export cotton to the United States, which then use the cotton to produce T-shirts. The value of the cotton is, let's say, $100, and the final value of the T-shirt is $200. If the ad valorem percentage is set in 35%, for example, in the trade agreement between these both countries, it be determined which is the percentage. In this case, let's say 35%. The T-shirt will be considered as having originated in the United States because the value added to the cotton by the U.S. manufacturer is more than 35%. It's 100% more of the final product, of the final value of the product. In conclusion, the value add rule is another essential criterion used to determine the country of origin of a product in international trade. It is typically expressed as a percentage of the final product total value and can be used to calculate the value of non-originating materials or minimum requirement of domestic content. The aim is to ascertain which country has added the most value to the product and hence which country can claim the product's origin. Let's move on the third and final method for substantial transformation, a specific manufacturing or processing operation. This criterion is also known as the technical requirement, and it involves a specific set of manufacturing or processing operations that must be undergone by a non-originating material to become an originating one. Unlike the other criteria, the specific manufacturing or processing operation criterion does not involve any change in the tariff classification or value add percentage. Instead, the focus is on the specific manufacturing or processing operation that must be performed. For example, let's say that you have import steel into a country and you want to transform it into a product that is considered originating in that country. The specific manufacturing or processing operation criterion may require you to perform specific operations on the steel, such as cutting, welding, or bending to transform it into a product that meets the originating requirements. It is important to know that the specific manufacturing or processing operations criterions can be used in its own or in combination with the other criterion. In some cases, a product may need to meet all three criteria to be considered originating. The specific manufacturing or processing operation criterion is often used in industry where there is a high degree of technical expertise required, such as the aerospace or automotive industry. The criterion can help ensure that the manufacturing or processing operation are done correctly and meet the necessary requirement for the product to be considered originating. So, the specific manufacturing of or processing operation criterion involve a specific set of manufacturing or processing operation that must be undergone by a non-originating material to become an originating one. This criterion can be used on its own or in combination with another criterion. It's often used in industry where there is a high degree of technical expertise required. Finally, and summarizing all criterions and method, there are two. Remember, there are two basic criteria for establishing origin. Remember, wholly obtained or produced and substantial transformation. The second criterion, the substantial transformation, can be determined by three main methods: change in tariff classification, value add rule, and a specific manufacturing or processing operation. The change in tariff classification involves classifying the product into a heading or subheading different from all or non-originating material used. The value add rule can be expressed through maximum allowance for non-originating materials or a minimum requirement of domestic content. And the specific manufacturing or processing operation criterion involve the product undergoing a specific manufacturing or processing operations.